And
good afternoon. I'm Laure Rosauer, and I'm joined here today by Philip Kaul, who is running for a supervisor position on our town board. This is one in a series of interviews that we're doing with all of the candidates, and we will be asking all of them the same questions and hope that this information is insightful for you as you learn about our candidates. So thank you for joining us today, Philip.
Thank you for having me.
Could you please, I'm going to start with providing a brief introduction about yourself, and then share with us what drove you to make the decision to seek a position on the town board as a supervisor.
So, my name is Philip Kaul. I've lived in Waterford, going to be 21 years now. I have a wife, Laure Kaul, and I have 3 great children. My oldest is 21, a 21 to 19, and a 14-year-old, 2 boys and a girl. And I hesitate to say grew up in Waterford, but my aunt and uncle owned the Century store. I mean, before they bought it from my aunt's parents, they worked there. And we used to come out here they had 3 sons, and for birthdays, parties, and it was always such a cool place. I remember walking down to the river by the library, and their boys were older than me. And so, you kind of like, oh, these guys are just gods, and I'm sure they were like, hey, go wade in the river, see if you can find that. I'm sure I know it, but I always had such a fond memory of Waterford. It was always like a cool little town. And when my wife and I got married, we lived in Milwaukee County, and I was like, this isn't for me. And we wanted I wanted Waterford, and I sold her on the deal. But we've been here over 20 years, so I think I sold her pretty good. So and then I always have been interested in and I'm guilty of, I didn't pay enough attention to what was going on locally. You get caught in the grind of the day, and the real thing that started was this whole police thing. And then I was kind of like, oh my God, this turned a great area ugly quick. And I felt like now it's just a lot of name calling and throwing, and I feel like, we've got that behind us, but we're not moving forward, I think, in the best direction. I mean, I think we need to do more to move forward. So that's why I decided to run. I put a lot of thought into this before this was very much not a whim. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So can you share some insights into your experience or expertise that you think you can bring to the board if you're as a supervisor?
I am a small business owner. 16 years ago, my wife and I started our business. And it's a small business. I don't have a $5 million budget. But when you own your own business and you're accountable for everything, you have a different way of thinking. You have a different way. You're not given a $10 million budget like a big. If you run a big corporation, you don't have a huge budget. Everything you do directly affects your bottom line. But guess what? You get paid last as a small business. Your vendors have to be paid. Your people have to be paid. So you learn how to do things differently. You look at things objectively. You can't just fly off the handle. You have to communicate with everybody. Everything affects you so quickly and so directly that it's a whole different perspective. And if you've never run a business, it's got its ups and a lot of downs, but you have to learn from it. And I feel that is one of the things that I feel like looking at as an outsider looking in, I can contribute on is I have a different way of looking at things. You have to compromise sometimes, you have to listen to everybody. And I think that's what helped me make the decision to run. And I think that's if I make it, it'll help me be an effective person on that board.
Great, thank you. So from your perspective, what issues do you think that are facing our town right now need to be addressed? And if there are some, what would be your solutions to address them?
So I think the number one issue, and it snowballs into everything else, is growth. It's nice to have money for everything, but you have to grow. If you're not growing your tax base, eventually you run out of other people's money to spend. I mean, you can't go back to the same people every year and go, need a little bit more. I mean, you have to grow your tax base. and we haven't really grown. I mean, and you know, even some of the businesses in the town, not the village, the town, you know, they're struggling. I mean, the Cruise Inn has been for sale for a long time. I just heard they're closing in June. You know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I think that we need to, as a town, as a board, help promote our small business, and then we need to look into growing our tax base. You know, that's really important. If you grow your tax base, it's better for everybody all the way around.
Do you have any thoughts as to how we could go about doing that?
Well, I know this ties into one other question. We have to get a boundary agreement with the village. I mean, that's a big priority, because there's that rule, if you're within, I believe, a mile of the town, you can't divide, you're building something, you can't divide anything less than 20 acres. That's a hand tied behind our back, and we need to work with the village to get that going. You know, new builds is always a great thing. And the other thing is, you know, we can armchair quarterback this, but I think that for the best of the town, it's probably worth looking into hiring a consultant, that this is what they do. I mean, we can say, oh, we should build an industrial complex, or we should do this and that, and it's great, but is it feasible? I mean, I can sit here and say we should, you know, put a Lowe's in next to the Michigan Fire Department, but is it feasible? No. You know, so I think that start with the tax base, get a boundary agreement going, and then I think as a board, the conversation should at least be had to hire a consultant. I mean, I think that's the way to do it. They know all the legal ins and outs, and I believe that's really what the next step is, before everybody has their whole huge opinion and we should do this and that. Let's see what legally we can do, and let's see what, you know, is feasible to do. You know, obviously we're not going to put an airport in here or anything. You know, I mean, everybody has an idea, and sometimes those ideas don't, you know, mesh well. But I think that a professional giving us their opinion is probably worth the money spent.
Excellent. You just touched then based on the boundary agreement, the cooperative boundary agreement. So you are in support of it, I'm hearing, and feel like this
needs to be done. I mean, obviously we're neighbors, but there was certain aspects of the one that the board voted down last time that I do feel, you know, wasn't in the best interest of the town. But again, as an outsider looking in, did we really negotiate that? Is this what, like, oh, here, it's this, you know, it seemed like the boundary agreement took a second seat to, when it should have. The police department was a priority, but now maybe, and you know, board members change on both sides. The village trustees change, our board has changed a little bit. I mean, that's something that maybe now with fresh sets of eyes, we should go back to the table. We definitely have to go back to the table and hammer something out that's beneficial for us, and hopefully, you know, works for them too.
Yeah, we interviewed Tom earlier, who was a part of that group, and he mentioned that the clock has run out on the existing agreement, so we would need to go back and start it again with, according to state statute.
There was flaws in that existing agreement, in my opinion. You know, I feel like we can't let them create a like you know, just, hey, we're gonna take this one spot in the middle here, because then can we have nice things then? Get something going, and we're gonna take that. And I felt like that was one of the things, and I believe it was 40 or 50 years on the time frame on some of those things. I think that's a long time. I mean, a lot can change in 40 or 50 years. So there was little. I mean, it was a good. I think it was a good first draft, but it had some flaws, and you know, I think it was a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit more favorable to the village than the town, and you know, maybe we can negotiate a little bit better of a thing going.
Okay, thank you. So moving on then, what is your position on the delivery of policing services in Waterford?
Oh, this is a good one. We have a PD. We voted for that as a town. I mean, it was voted on. That was the basis of that election, and I think we have a good PD. I urge anybody that doesn't think that, have a conversation with the new chief. See where it's going. The man's been there 3 months. You know, he's got a little bit of work to do. We had some huge staffing issues. You know, we were kind of bare bones, and for anybody to expect, you know, we we don't want this rebuilt in a day. You know, you want quality over quantity, and I think you have to give the man a little bit of time. You know, we have a chief that he is very, very well spoken, and you know, if you have any grievances with it, go to him. I mean, and he's going to have the mindset, I'm sure, the buck stops with him. He's going to want to keep his job. He's going to run a tip-top force. You know, let's let him get settled and let's let him do it. But I think that this negativity for the police, this whole issue of there's a side that just wants to get rid of it. We've made a commitment as a town. We hired a chief. He got a two-year contract. It's great. We're hiring full-time officers. How would you feel? Hey, I'm gonna give you a full-time job. Yeah, but you know, next week we might defund you, or you know, we might pull your budget, and you might be out of a job. That's not fair. I mean, everybody's got a family in the PD, the officers have, and also it's not going to attract. If this is a constant thing that won't be put to rest, would you want to apply for a job that you don't know if you're going to have a job in a year? I mean, you want a quality police department, and quality comes with people that that's what makes the quality. And if we're constantly debating this issue all the time and we won't put it to bed, we're never going to get quality. Because who would want to work for a job? Who wants to start a career and go, I don't know if I'll have a job next year. Hey, honey, we're not going to move anywhere near here because we might not have a job next year. So I think that we have a police force. We should support the police force. And on the same token, though, too, you know, we do rely on the Racine County Sheriff for a third shift. We also need to put that to bed. I see stuff on social media where there's somebody that's claiming that they're all pedophiles or they've done something wrong. You know, we should respect them too, because I'm sure they respect our officers too. As a town, we should respect the sheriff's department too. So I think that this whole mudslinging between the PD and the sheriffs, but not by them, but by people on social media and everything else, it needs to put to bed. We need to move on. We have bigger problems to solve than this. So.
Good, thank you.
Was that what you? I don't know if you're asking about shifts or anything.
No. But what I want people to understand is whether or not the candidates are in support of the Waterford Police Department and continuing to invest in the police department. And you answered that you are.
Yeah.
And so that's the question we want people to understand is what is your position? Do you support it? And do you want to continue to invest in it? And I think you answered that well.
Yeah, I mean, you have to invest in some form of law enforcement too. And I mean, I think it's as long as they do a great job, and I think the new chief, you know, if you spend 5 minutes talking to him, you're excited. I mean, he's got ideas. I've never heard any other chief, you know, like, hey, I'm going to do this and this, and I'm looking into this. And he seems like he's got a hunger to make it better. And I think we got to give him a little time. I mean, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. The Waterford PD isn't going to be built in a day. But I think instead of everything that's negative about this, talk to him, give him a chance. And, you know, everybody's got an opinion on staffing. You know what? The buck's going to stop with him. You know, he's going to make these choices on how to staff, and I'm sure he knows that if he doesn't do a good job, you know, he's going to be called into question later. So I think he's got the hunger to do a good job, and I think everybody who's not in for this, should just at least talk to him once. Come in with him, have your questions, at least hear what he has to say before you make this judgment of, oh, let's get rid of him or whatever. Because I think that you need to hear what he has to say. I mean, he is really, like I said, I've talked to former police chiefs, and I have nothing hideously bad to say about any of our former, but he strikes me as a guy that is very hungry to make this a good place, and I think that's exciting for everybody, and they should all at least hear him out.
Good, thank you. So what right now is your opinion of the current working relationship we have with the village, and do you see any opportunity for change in that area?
I think that I think we do work with the village a little bit, but I think it always can be better. I mean, you know, we could even like as far as businesses, I think we should do stuff with the village more. You know, like, you know, they have a great, you know, can we do a combined national night out? You know, I remember when I was a kid, I got a bike from Muskego one time, you know, and I think my kids won something from a national night out. I think we could always work with the village. And I mean, I think that we do some projects together, but I also think we don't highlight enough of what we do with the village. You know, we did that Christmas tree thing. I mean, is that on the town's website? I didn't see it. You know, we're so close to each other in proximity of everything. I think that we should have a good relationship, and we should be advertising. You know, it could go the same way with the village. We should be advertising our strengths. You know, like, hey, the Lions Club show is on Tishigan in the park. You know, or the car show is this, or hey, we have the Lake Tishigan Fishing Jamboree. You know, I think that we could all. It's never going to hurt anybody to work closely with them. I mean, it's always going to be. There's no negativity. I mean, even one of the talks, the old St. Thomas Church, there's a few families that are looking to purchase that church from the Arch, and they want to make it a Waterford Historical Society, like a little mini museum was one of the talks. So, I mean, I think the village should be involved in that. The town, if we don't have a good relationship, they're not going to ask us. I mean, but then again, too, I think we also have to make sure that our needs are covered too. You know, we have to make sure the town is served well too. We can't, you know, it's got to be a two-way street.
Very good. I'm going to move on to a couple of different areas that I would like you to share your thoughts and opinions on. One is, as you know, the village has their own fire and EMS, as does the town. Do you have an opinion on those two entities, or what's your thoughts around the town's fire and EMS?
So, I might be off base on this one, but I feel that the town, especially the Tishigan Fire Department and the town, I don't think there's a good relationship there sometimes. I don't know if there's some animosity. I don't know if former administrations have, you know, hurt their, you know, there's some hurt. I get the impression there's hurt feelings there. We need fire and EMS, just like you need police. I mean, that's one of those calls. When you're making that call, you want to make sure somebody's coming and coming quick, you know. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to have a strong EMS and fire. I live very close to the Tishigan Fire Department, so maybe I'm a tiny bit biased, but they seem to run a good ship. Like I said, some of these meetings come, and I get the impression there's a lot of animosity between the board and them. I mean, Tishigan, the volunteer fire department, they got a raise in their rates. I think they've gotten the last two a good amount. But I do think, though, that it would be nice as a good faith gesture for them to be a little more transparent to us. I mean, let's be honest, they're not holding like $20 million there. There's no helicopter pad in the back. But I think that's part of it, is there's a fractured relationship that needs to be mended. And you know, I wish there was just a little bit more transparency.
And transparency in relationship to?
There's a lot of talk about like the books. You know, they don't want us to see what they're doing, but they want more money, which is, I get it. They're nonprofit, so like I said, I think this is kind of directly from, I don't know if the previous town chairs, you know, to maybe going back to Tom Hintz, didn't have the best rapport with them, and they're standoffish with us. Because like I said, I can't imagine that those books being, whoa, you know, I think they run a tight ship there, and they have good people, and I think the relationship, I'm speculating, but I think it's fractured a little bit, and I think we got to fix that. I mean, we want a good fire department. We also want a fire department that loves the community, and the community loves them, and I think that's very important.
Thank you. So I'm assuming you're very aware of the fact that we have not done a town-wide property tax reassessment since 2008.
Yep.
And it's my understanding that the board tonight will be taking a vote on sending out an RFP to hire a firm to do a reassessment in the very near future. The Department of Revenue, I've done a little bit of research on this, and the Department of Revenue actually recommends that you look at your assessments at least every 5 years. That should be about the time frame in which you should be considering doing a reevaluation. we've gone 18. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts
So,
on
This
on
is
this
a
issue?
really complicated issue. It is not like poof. I did some research on there, and we're a little off the realm, but the city of Greenfield went almost 14 years.
Oh, I should let you know that we're not the only
Oh,
public
no, we're
that's
not.
gone longer, but this is in terms of Waterford, the town of Waterford.
Yeah, no, I mean
Yeah.
it is a very complicated way because I went back and tried to look at some of those videos for every June. Our assessor gives the board a report. You know, all right, you're in compliance. All right, okay, you're out of compliance. Well, we have 3 years to get yourself into compliance. The problem with I think it's a very complicated system, and I think the board needs to pay closer attention. But the problem with it doing it, I think, every 5 years is, you know, hire this firm to do this. For Greenfield was like $200,000. So, you know, I'm guessing we're going to probably speculate on spending on probably 150,000 to do this, which is fine. We have to do it. But again, that's a lot of money to do every 5 years if you're not going to see a change. It's a very complicated thing with mill rate, and mill rates factored on value, everything. I mean, there's so many factors in the mill rate alone. It's confusing. And here's the other thing, and I've talked to some people about this. The town doesn't, you know, let's say somebody's taxes go up, and I'm just picking a number, $1,000. Well, the town doesn't get that $1,000. You know, some of that goes to the schools, some of that goes to the county. And so if people are thinking that we're going to do a reassessment and we're going to have this financial windfall for the town, it's not going to happen. Should it have waited this long? I don't think so, but you know, nobody wants to hear my taxes are going to go up. And in Wisconsin as a whole, the state is we're highly taxed as far as, you know, you go to other states. Yes, we get a lot of services for it. But especially, and I'm sure that board is going to approve it, and that's going to be done. Now more than ever, you're going to have to go to your constituents and explain how every dollar is being spent wisely. We have to look at, as a town, we have to look at everything that we are spending, because everybody, I would guess 80% of the people out there are going to be livid when they get a tax increase. And they're going to. I mean, it's been 18, you know, well, I mean, taxes going up here and there, but and it might not be, you know, depending on the mill rate and everything else, and that's all through the county. Maybe it might not be as bad as everybody thinks, too, as far as the dollar amount. It's going to be an interesting. It's a very complicated system. It's very confusing, and I think sometimes government makes it that way, so you don't ask a lot of questions, or you can't go, hey, this is wrong, fix it. So, but it needs to be done. It's unfortunate. It was 18 years, but I think people are going to be upset, and rightfully so. But I think as a board, we would have to look at everything that's being spent. We have to show every voter that, yeah, your taxes are going up, but we're not wasting anything. And it's also important to let them know, like, you know, hey, this is not going directly into our kitty. You know, 59 cents of the dollar is going to schools. The county gets this. You know, this goes there, and we get this portion. So.
Very good, thank you. Moving on, one of the issues that's been talked about within the community is public input at the board meetings, public input engaging with the board. What is your position and thoughts on that?
It's got to be done. You got to hear whether a board members or members want to hear the bad. You got to hear. I mean, everybody that's paying a tax, living in the town, is entitled to a voice. You know, you might not like to hear that voice, but that's got to be a given. I mean, and sometimes, you know, if you're willing to listen to everybody, that plants the seed of, maybe that person's not totally off base, or hey, maybe we should look into this, or hey, everybody's coming to complain about A. well, this is a problem, so let's address this problem. Obviously, somebody's upset by this, more than one person's upset by this. Let's hear it. And I think if you are any political office, any voted in office, you have to take the criticism. You have to hear your constituents who might not like it, but that's part of democracy. Most people don't get involved in politics because it's easy and classy all the time. So I think that has to be a part of the board meetings.
Oh, thank you. And then we touched base on this a little bit earlier, but you've talked about growth being critical, that we should look at hiring a consultant, and that the plans, we have to focus on this. This is what's going to help drive certain things. I don't know whether or not I may have talked to you. I don't know that I asked this question earlier, but I may have skipped over it. Do you think that we have an adequate operating budget? And if not, what would you propose to modify it?
I think we have to have this. We have to make their budget adequate. Now, if you're talking about modifying,
Do you think it's adequate as it stands today?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it has to be, because here's the thing. Otherwise, we're almost. I believe we're tapped out on the levy. So we can't increase the levy per the state.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we going to do? Start borrowing? And the problem is, if you don't live within your means, so to speak, and you start borrowing, then you're borrowing again, and you're guard again. And then also, there's going to be a new governor. Some of these candidates, I know we haven't had a candidate, and he said some of these candidates are running strictly on property tax freezes. So if we take out a loan, and we have a big loan here for all, whatever, and then all of a sudden the governor's office changes, and oh, by the way, property taxes are frozen for 3 years, and the levies are frozen too. Now what do we do? And I think that's, it's always nice to have a lot of money to do things. It would be awesome to pave every street in Waterford with gold. It would be the town. It would be awesome to, put a swimming pool in the park. If you had an unlimited budget, it'd be awesome to do these things. But the bottom line is we don't have that, and we have to operate within our budget. And I don't think we should take on any loans. I think we should kind of just make do. And that's part of when I started my business, I learned a lot. And one of the things is, what we need to change the way we do things is, I think we get into this position of, I'll ask a question on a certain thing, and then I'll be like, well, this is the way it's always been done. Mm-hmm. And I think that, we have a lot of great people that work for the town as a whole. There's a lot of longevity there. I think Kenny's retiring after 33 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's pretty darn cool. I mean, to have somebody 33 years. But you get kind of, I'm not saying Kenny, but as a whole, the longer you've been in a position, I think the more complacent you get on, oh, this is just the way it's done. And, we should look as a town to save, if you can save $2,000 here, 2,000 here, 2,000 there, that all adds up. And I think we should look as like, all right, do we need to change vendors for something? Yeah, we've done business with XYZ forever. Mm-hmm. Are we getting the best price? One of the things I learned when I started buying semis, and we have trucks, I dealt with a guy that sold me tires. He was the greatest guy in the world. He was, the consummate salesman. And he was, and I remember thinking to myself, man, I'm spending a lot on tires. And then I'm like, well, Hunts would never steer me wrong. He's my buddy, he always says. Yeah. And then Hunts retires. And then I get a new sales guy, and the sales guy just isn't Hunts. This guy's last name was Hunts.
Okay.
And Hunts, and you always wanted to be called Hunts. But he wasn't Hunts. And then I started shopping around, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm paying way too much for a product. I'm paying way too much. And I'm like, boy, Hunts was a great salesman, wasn't he? He had me going like, oh, I'm giving you don't tell anybody I'm giving you the best deal in town. Okay. And I think we don't, because there's so much longevity there, sometimes maybe we don't look at like that. All right, if we're buying, I don't care if we're buying toilet paper for somebody, are we getting the best price? And I think that as a board, we need to make sure that every nickel is being spent the best way. I mean, any vendor that we have, and it's great, you know, hey, but sometimes, and especially when you deal with government, you know, you think, well, you know, those people aren't spending their own money, they got a budget, let's see what we can get out of them and see how much we can get them to spend. And I think we should look at almost every vendor in the building. I mean, just because if we can save money that way, let's save money that way. And again, it all adds up, you know, a few thousand here, a few thousand there. You know, maybe we can have get enough money to hire a consultant.
Okay.
That was a joke.
Well, listen, you know.
But it is important to look at that. I look at everything from where I buy oil to where I buy tape to where and you know, I've learned I constantly, you know, just because I've been buying from this company for a good amount of time, I constantly check things. And I think as a town, we need to constantly just keep everything, you know, make sure we're getting the best price for everything we're doing. I mean, everything.
No, that's not, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. In wrapping up, is there any areas, like, you know, we've selected a group of issues that we think are relevant to the current environment of the town, but are there any areas that you think you would like to focus on, or you think are important to talk about? Outside of the topics that we've
I think one of the areas that it's important, but I think we don't have good communication with the residents. Not everybody's on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Our website is okay, it's just okay. And I know it's been in the works, but listen, it's been in the works a long time. This should be kind of technology like that is fairly inexpensive. This should be something that's a no-brainer that we should be able to have a revamp of the website. The other thing is, I don't know if we embrace technology to the fullest. You know, I think that, you know, we don't have a server, we don't have a network, you know, in the town. And again, we don't, you know, just the way it's been done. You know, do we have an automated payroll system? You know, are we still punching a paper time card?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's technology like that is fairly inexpensive, and it would also, you know, let's pick Kenny for instance. You know, he doesn't have to look at a paper time card. He doesn't have to, you know, this could be all automated, and then it goes to the town treasurer, and the town treasurer just, okay, you know, we don't have to have two people looking at something, or, you know, anything, you know, POs. Are we doing POs in a paper book? You know,
mm-hmm.
how are we within a reasonable area for, you know, I'm not saying we need the cutting edge technology of an AI robot walking around, but are we using everything to the best of the ability? Are we overwhelming certain departments? I mean, is the chief spending hours a day figuring out timesheets when this could be automated and his time could be best looking at something else? You know, I think that we aren't doing that yet, and we need to do it. And I think that's a big thing is, you know, get a website, because not everybody has, you know, Twitter or, you know, Facebook or Instagram. You know, make it accessible for the people of the town to see it, and, you know, if they have questions, you know, I when I went and got signatures, I was amazed how many people were like, I don't have social media. I don't, you know, it's hard to, you know, if I have a problem, my garbage wasn't picked up, who do I call?
Mm-hmm.
You know, little stuff like that. I had a couple people who were like, hey, can we get the town board meetings on, you know, watch them on like YouTube or something, and I'm like, that's on the website. You can zoom in for that. A lot of people didn't know that. Oh, the websites can. I heard from more than one person. The website's extremely confusing.
Okay.
It might be to some, it might not be, but I think we could polish that up rather easily, and not, you know, not pricey wise, but
mm-hmm.
I think it needs to be. And then that's the same thing too. You know, let's have a website that has maybe, you know, like, hey, a newsletter kind of tied to it. Like, hey, this is what's going on. Chief is upped boat patrol 200%. Hey, good news. The DPW has put all new swings in the park, you know, and all new basketball nets. You know, little things so, you know, you can see what everybody, you know, we don't need to hear about everything, but it would be nice to hear about what's going on, or this is what we're looking for in the town, or hey, the recycling, I saw Tanya put out, hey, the recycling center's open today. You know, hey, recycling center's open. Keep in mind, we take tires, we take this, no paint, no nuclear bombs, please. You know, stuff like that. I think I think that it would be nice just to communicate with the residents a little bit more. You know, not everybody can go to every board meeting. It's people have schedules, people have families. Everybody's in a different situation in life, and I think that it'd be easier to just kind of put it out there in that kind of realm with the website. Even town doesn't have a Facebook page. You know, I mean, the PD's got one. It's actually pretty darn nice. You know, little stuff like that, so they know what we're doing and what we're looking forward to doing. Like, all right, what's next for the town? I asked everybody when I was getting my signatures to run. I said, do you know what's next for the town? And he went, no. I don't either. You know, hey, let's put out there like we're looking to do. Hey, we want to get this done, or looking to expand this, or we're looking into that. But it's all very secretive, you know. Or maybe there is no surefire plan. But it would be nice, and it'd also be nice to, hey, let's take a poll. What do you guys want to see from your town? You know, it would. The more information would never hurt anybody. It would only help.
Good point. No, I mean, communication is obviously, I think, very important. So that's a very good point.
And another thing too is I realized too, getting these signatures, that if we don't put it out there as a town, on a town website, I went to one older lady and she was upset about, to get a signature, she was upset about Boat Patrol. And they said something to me, and I said, did you ever call the chief and ask about that? And then she went, well, yeah. And I said, what did he say? And I said, well, he's very hard to get a hold of. I said, well, did you actually talk to him? No. Did you leave him a message? No, but I've heard he's very hard to get a hold of. So, again, what happens is, if the town doesn't put it out, and I don't care how reliable or anything, any Facebook pages, not yours, not any, it should come from the town, because that can put all rumors to rest. And again, I took it as it was a very big rumor. She just heard from somebody, or she assumed that there wasn't anything, you know, he wasn't accessible. Or maybe she had a bad experience with the previous chief and it wasn't accessible. So I feel like the more information we put out there, I'd rather see it overkill, that people can choose to ignore it, but then at least there's something like, oh, go back to January's newsletter, that was discussed, rather than, well, they just don't care. So.
Good point. Good. Well, I very much appreciate your time today. You've been very insightful. I think the voters will learn a lot from your positions and opinions, and you've got your suggestions on communication, I think, are probably something that would be well received within the community, because you're right, there is, right now there's limited aspects of gathering information from a social perspective.
And another thing too, if I can just say, it's one thing we put it into a committee or whatever, but certain things we should be able just to act on right away. I'm not saying like we don't need several meetings on a major purchase or a major project, but something small. Like, all right, we're gonna make a town Facebook page. This shouldn't be 6 months to discuss this. This should be something that can go, all right, who's gonna run it? What are the protocols? Boom, we're done. I mean, let's move the little stuff forward and then really discuss the big stuff as it comes to be.
Good, thank you. Well, Philip, I really want to thank you for your time today. We very much appreciated learning about you, meeting you, and learning your positions, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future. And I want to thank all of you for listening today, and hope you have a good day.